yeah. How are you doing on this special day? Keeping your motivation in a special way.
Yasharel were gone forth out of the land of Mizraim. The same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Yasharel camped before the mountain. And Shemaiah went up unto Elohim, and Yah called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Yasharel, You have seen what I did unto the Mizraimites, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me, above all people, for all the earth is mine. You shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and a Kodesh nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Yasharel.
Yah promised he would give us a kingdom. We disobeyed and fell into a syndrome.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
Yah said in the lands of our captivity, when we return, he will give us liberty. Return back to our land of nativity, kingdom of peace for the whole wide world to see. Oh yeah. Here we go now. Here we go now.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
Yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
We will reign for 1,000 years with him. Kings and priests having God's law with him. We were paid for the trials and tribulations. That's when the world would pay us our full reparations.
Reparations,
Reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations.
Bondage.
Yasharel were gone forth out of the land of Mizraim. The same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Yasharel camped before the mountain. And Shemaiah went up unto Elohim, and Yah called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Yasharel, You have seen what I did unto the Mizraimites, and how I bore you with eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me, above all people, for all the earth is mine. You shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and a Kodesh nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Yasharel.
Hold on a second. Man, this this studio kind of redid everything all over again, but pardon for the interruption. So how's everybody doing today? Praise God for another day, to Shabbat, to come in and to be able to be before you, the people, sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah. Before we get started, we're going to do I was just kind of meditating what I was going to navigate for today's lesson on yesterday's, being that we had extended days off. So I said I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the Black History series. We're already in the first Gregorian month, and we generally start Black History. Most people dedicate the month of February, this second Gregorian month. So I said, let me just go ahead and do something different. Let's go ahead and get started. Start a month early, give people. So we're going to cover a lot of information today. But before we get started with that, I want to say that, let me get my chat going here so I can see. I don't have my chat going. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. That's Andre. Good to see you, my brother. And Brother Dookie Dollars. And that was a nice, light to Gentiles. That was nice of him to mention the brethren's names here. So big ups to him. I know his brother, he's motivated and doing the work, and we tried to push traffic over there to his channel. Him being not one of those, I don't know, like, where did that come from? Pardon me. Not being a part of the hype, teaching false doctrine, but just teaching the truth. And sometimes the algorithms want to try to block people. This channels like our channel that's actually teaching the truth, and we go all the way in and attack the truth from every angle. So we don't get no. And incidentally, I was it was the night before January 1st. I said I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna see Shabbat Shalom, Tresky. You and Cynthia Cynthia. We said Shabbat Shalom. I know you guys got some good weather down there in Jacksonville. We a little cold up here. We in the 30s. It's reasonably um, is reasonable. Coach Sherry, Shabbat Shalom to you, my sister. Good to see you. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's do this here. Since I got the studio set up, we can put people's posts on the screen. Okay, so that's Andre there, King, the name I can't say, and Brother Dallas is here. Brother Dallas, and let's see, you got Brother Dallas, and then we got my main man, Aktreski, my brother in the covenant, and my brother in the other covenant. Where's my hat at? I don't have one near me. Y'all already know. Okay. Yeah, we down. Yeah, we out for the season, but to be expected. But we'll be back. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. Coach Sherry, yeah, Coach Sherry. Um, Shabbat Shalom to you. She gave me the heart. Praise Yah for the heart. At some point in time, I'm gonna figure out how to get my sound effects back in here. There's a way to do it. I just haven't figured it out yet. So y'all gonna have to imagine the sound effects. I could push. You know what I could do? I got two. I got two stream decks. I could plug the other one in. Maybe I'll play with it. See how I can get my sound. I miss my sound effects. Um, brother, Lamar. Good to see you, my brother. Good to see you. Been missing seeing you online. I know you've probably been listening on the side, but yeah, welcoming the power of Yah. That's right. Um, Hallelujah is right. Um, we got Eliot Stone here. Eliot Stone, Shabbat Shalom to you, my brother, and Shabbat to your family, your household. Uh, I know y'all got good weather there in Vegas. Wait till I'm done with these bills. I might make me a winter home somewhere. Anybody want to take me in for the winter in those warm climates? See, I can't do my sound effects. And Shabbat Shalom is Terry. He's in the cold territory like me, so he's probably Terry. You probably colder than me. You up there up there north of me? I'm not gonna tell the people where you're from unless you want to tell it. But you up colder than where I'm at. I was looking at the thing, the map this morning. It was saying that people that live up in the New York area, north of me, this morning felt like it was 12 degrees. I said, "Oh, I ain't gonna complain then." I won't complain. All right. Now back to what I was saying. Okay. And I greet you. If you come in, if you want to see your name in the lights, just come in and say something. I'll put your name in the lights. If you got a question or comment, put your name in the lights. If you want to come online and show your face, here, click this link here. And with this, we can bring you in. All right. All right. So Terry said Jersey. Okay. So he's telling his business. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, with that said, I was watching let's do this here. Hold on a second. There you go. So we got two channels here. So that's automatic generated comment. So I was online. I mean, it was the night before January 1st. And I said I'm gonna go online to see if any Hebrew Israelites is online enlightening the people about Janus Day. So, to my surprise, a big channel, one of the popular Hebrew Israelite information channels, was on live, and the title of the live was "Watch Night Service," and I was like, okay, well maybe he's gonna go ahead and enlighten the multiplicity of viewers about the history of watch night, right? So to my surprise, he was actually bringing in the new year, the Gregorian New Year, on a live stream. Now, I remember, and I'm not going to hang in here too long on this because I remember another Moray who's no longer with us. Those you all has been in this walk a long time, you know who I'm talking about. I don't have to say no name. All I gotta say is that they have a funny way of spelling Israelite. But this brother was attacking us for observing the feast days, right? And it was a big thing. We had a big fallout over that, right? We had a big fallout over that. Oh, it says rain, but still nice. I know that's right. I take the rain and the nice weather at the same time. But we had fallout with this brother, and it was a big war going on in the Hebrew Israelite. This was, see, once upon a time, right? And I'm going way back. Moray Josiah could attest to this. Um, we Israelites, even though we had different ways to voice the name, Aliyah bringing rain to the desert. Oh, uh, um, although we had different way we pronounce the names different. Some people say Yahweh, some people said uh, Yahweh, some people said Yahuwah, some people said Yehovah. I mean, we had different, but we all kind of like back during those days. I'm talking about like early 2000, like Y2K, maybe 1999, somewhere way back then. We all, if we could go to a congregation and this congregation say Yahweh, this congregation say Yahoo, but we wasn't in battle with each other over that, right? But this brother came along and he said that Yah, this is what he said, Yah showed him that we were sinning by keeping the feast days outside of Jerusalem. And that was a big war. From that time, that's when we started fighting, and then we didn't really fight too much over the names, right? Now we've all graduated. Some people left from saying Yahweh to say Yahuwah. Um and um but the point I'm making is this here. That brother, right? He cut out the Most High's feast days. And it was, I'll never forget, it was New Year's Eve. He was online streaming. Let's pray for y'all to bless us for the new year. And I'm like, huh? Wait a minute. How is it that you're going to eliminate the Most High's feast days, but you're going to celebrate the days that have been imposed upon us by the colonizers? Right? And people say, well, I'm in America, so I celebrate the days that America gave us, right? America gave you slavery. Did you celebrate that? Shut up and dribble. All right. So, so this brother had a live stream, and I was shocked. I was like, wow. I had a flashback. I said, wow, that reminded me of when this other brother had a big organization, did the same thing, right? So, right. Exactly. Bro, Terry said, Hasatan showed him that trash, right? Yeah. So I guess the thing I'm trying to point is that without me going to the biblical text and reading it, scriptures, Deuteronomy 30 said that we would return to the covenant. So when we are embracing all of that stuff that the colonizers gave us, it's showing that we have not accepted the punishment. Leviticus 26 says, if we accept the punishment, right? Accepting the punishment means that we acknowledge that we've been wrong, that we have embraced these pagan festivities by our colonizers and our ancestors embraced it, and so we continue to religiously participate in the ways of the heathens. And we want to bring the Most High in the mix of that. You better go to 2 Kings chapter 17, where he showed you that the Most High took the children of Israel out of the land and brought another people in there, and they served their deity and they served Yah. So when you're participating with Janus Day, celebrating the two-headed deity, the God of looking forward and looking backwards, you're mixing worship, the Most High's day, with pagan festivity. Am I right? Am I right? So that was disappointing in me when I saw that. I was like, wow. I said, is this what we're doing now? We're using the ways of the heathens to build our movement, to build our base, right? That's why I had problem with people like Omar Tabo, right? All these people that utilize the Hebraic culture to build their movement, right? You got to choose who you're going to serve this day. Are you going to serve Yah or are you going to serve Baal? You know, we graduating to calling the Most High Lord and all of that, and we fine with it, knowing that the Lord was a substitution. But we cool with that, right? We're showing the Most High that we have not accepted the punishment. We want to serve Yah at our convenience. Well, what could be wrong with saying Jesus? What could be wrong with saying the Lord? We speak English. That's showing that you have not accepted the punishment. And it's because of that type of attitude that our captivity is prolonged. What you bring to the table, brother? All right. So with that said, now we're going to the title of the lesson today is called the Luke 21:24 Amplified, right? Now we're going to that's right. Elias said they are serving their own lust and will deceive others. That's the truth. And that's the truth straightway, as Pastor Dow would say. Okay, now, so we're going to do reverse slave trade, okay? So we're going to lay a foundation first with Luke 21 because we want to bring some clarity to Luke 21:24. Now, I don't have a problem with anybody viewing this channel and taking what we share and incorporating that in their lesson, right? But one thing I will say, and this is for sure, I've always been Ruach led. I seek the Most High to get knowledge and comprehension of the book because that's how I was brought into the truth. I didn't go to a Hebrew school where somebody taught me I was an Israelite, right? What I got seeking the Most High, straight up, and comparing those to other people that was already in the walk. And I said, oh man, Most High has given me stuff that, so whenever I share things, it's things that the Most High revealed to me, right? Apart from any other outside source. Okay. Outside sources, as I said, are confirmations, right? So I've never heard nobody using Luke 21:24 until the Most High gave it to us to share. And we've been using Luke 21:24 when I was younger and had hair on my head. Let me see. Y'all messy today. Look at it. I spelled it Jesus. They hate that. Jesus. He said, Elias Stone said, I like counterfeit Messiah. Yeah. Talk about making people angry. Right. But see, that's the thing, Elias Stone. We I've seen some numbers and the heathen population numbers are crashing, the Shemitic numbers are increasing. Yeah. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Um, but the thing is that Yah, the Most High, right? He wants us as his chosen people to come out of Babylon, not to incorporate Babylon because that's prolonging the captivity, right? We got to come out of it, right? Now, so we're going to go backwards. We're going to do the reverse slave trade in the history month. So invite people. Um, Once again, we repetitiously we say that, but when you like the video, it it's supposed to help to get the video to where it will be recommended to other people so we can reach out to people. Okay, we know we're shadow banned, but um the more people like and share, the more it will override the shadow ban until maybe one day it will just release um the blockage. Okay. Um So we're going to go the reverse slave trade. This is actually going in the reverse order, but we're going to lay the foundation. So we're going to start with Luke 21:24. That's why I said the Most High gave me that Luke 21:24, right? Okay. Now, how can I do this here? I want to share this screen here. Let's see. Share screen. Window. Oh, here we go. Right here. There we go. I got it. I think I got it now. Okay. All right. There we go. So now we're going to start right here, Luke 21:24. It says, and they shall fall, right? Um, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, let's see, did I do that right or wrong? Okay. I got to bring myself back in this picture some kind of way. Okay, I'm there. Now, how do I go back to the full screen? If I do this here? Okay, there we go. I gotta play with y'all. I figured it out. Okay, now, so the key thing I want to bring out in that verse there, this is Ruach speaking, gave me this years ago. The they, right? When people try to say, oh, Deuteronomy 28, and Genesis, where he said that they shall um, uh, know of a surety that your seed shall be a stranger in the land that's not theirs, right? So all those previous passages that happened prior to the Messianic coming in the flesh, and Yahshua HaMashiach, right? The theologians say, oh, that happened already. So Mosai said, you know what? Let me show you something here, young brother. The Messiah came after the Babylonian captivity, and he had this to say. So how do they explain that? Okay. How do they explain what the Messiah said in the red? That they shall fall, right? The word for fall, let me see if I can do this here. If I can go back in here. They shall fall. The word for fall is the word pipto in Greek, which means it says they shall fall through the idea of alighting, right? To come down on. So what happened there, brothers and sisters? Okay. The oppressors, right, came down on the Israelites, right? Now I had a picture. Maybe I'll dig it out and I'll show it on the screen next Shabbat, where they actually showed the Romans with their foots on Negroes. It was a magazine. I said, what are they trying to tell us here? This was back in the early 2000s. Yeah. So they came down. The text says that they shall lighten or fall. They shall come down on the people. And the way they are going to do it is, he said, by the edge of the sword, right? So that word edge is the word, the mouth, right? Now here, check this out. This is deep. Y'all got to get this here, right? Let me bring it back on the screen. Okay. So the word for edge is the word stoma, which means, it says the mouth, as if a gash in the face. By implication, language, right? And its relations, it says opening in the earth, right? Specifically, the front or edge of a weapon. Now, are y'all ready for this? Okay. So, the Most High in Deuteronomy said, I will bring a nation upon thee from far, right? As swift as the eagle flies, a nation, watch this now, whose language you will not understand, huh? Isn't that what it said? Let's pull it out. Let's bring it out. Okay. Let's go to Deuteronomy, right? A tongue. Let me see. I want to make sure I say it right now, because I want nobody to say, brother, you butchered that verse. Okay, so let's do it. Deuteronomy 28, and it's 40. It's 49. Yah shall bring a nation, right, against thee from far. So what's this word far? Okay. Far is many from, and 75 remote. It says precious adverbially remote, right? Okay. Yah shall bring a nation against thee from far. Then he said from the end, right? That is the extremity. So see, just in case somebody missed it, right? When the Most High said extremity, right, from far, that from far means that the Most High is going to bring a nation from the extreme parts of the world. Now, doggone it, they want to try to tell us that it was Rome. Rome is not extreme. It's not far. It's not the extremity of the earth. And secondly, the Hebrews could understand the Roman language because they were bilinguals. They were under the Roman Empire, right? So to say that that passage is talking about the Romans 70 AD, the Romans taking them to Egypt, that's not it. That's not fulfilling that. we understood, we comprehended the Egyptian tongue. We also comprehended the Latino tongue because the Israelites during that day that were in Jerusalem, majority, just like in America, right? We done lost our native tongue. We speak the Anglos and Saxons language. What you bringing to the table, brother? All right, now, so let's go back in here, okay? So he says, a nation from far, that's the extremity, that's the word katesh, the extremity, right? Extremity, okay? If you define extremity, it's a word that leaves you to believe that it's something that's far out, something never seen before. Now, Deuteronomy 28 is going to clarify it, and then we'll go back to Luke 21, and then we're going to go a little further from there. All right. So now, when you go back to Deuteronomy 28, let's finish this out here. He says, Yah shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, the extremity, as swift as the eagle flies, right? So now we do know by certain that the imperial eagle is the symbol of the sons of Japhet. I like to say the way Josiah says it, Japhet. All right? Uh, America is his daughter of Rome. Britain, UK, is a daughter of Rome. Some people, as Gates of Huda, well, that's just she be on it. Britain, I think, how does she say it was the fourth right or third right or second right? Wait a minute. One of the rights. Okay. I'm gonna leave that with her. Let her do that. But she did a good job on that. She showed the connection, how that Rome extended itself. Roman Empire didn't end. So when you have the third right, I think it was. Somebody help me if y'all seen her lesson on that, right? But then America is extension of that. So America is the new right of the Roman rule. It's the extension of the sons of Japhet, right? I need a hand clap right there. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's go. Back to Deuteronomy 28. Okay. So now he says, as far as from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle fly, a nation whose tongue, there it is, a nation whose tongue or whose language, right? Whose language whose tongue you shall not understand. How about that? How about that? So Luke 21:24 is detailing Deuteronomy. So that's how we know that Deuteronomy is the all of the 5 slave trade, which we're going to talk about today, is a fulfillment of Luke 21:24, because each one of those nations that took us into captivity, we didn't know their language. Am I right? Now, let's go back to Luke 21:24. So as we see now Luke 21:24 says that word, they shall fall by the edge of the sword, right? And shall be led away captive, right? 39:56, into all, right? nations, right? Now, these nations that we was taken into captivity to at the time of this prophecy, only one of them was established. That was Rome. So when you go into Daniel's prophecy, right, in Daniel chapter 9, right, I want to bring something in this picture here because let me do this here right quick because this just came through my mind here. Covered this in the previous lesson. Let's go to Zechariah right quick, right? Zechariah 1, right? And I'm not going to read too much. I'm just going to kind of give you the passage there so you can go ahead and look at it and amplify it further. So we're going to start at Zechariah 1:18 and 19. It says here, Then I lifted up my eyes and saw and beheld four horns, right? And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered, watch this now, Judah, right? Look at that. Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Boom, right? Those are the horns that scattered Judah, right? Israel, and Jerusalem, right? So now we used to say that only Judah was led captive all nations. That's not true. That's not true. Israel, right, was mixed. So when you say, and kudos to Maury Josiah for breaking it down. When we see the English word Jew in the biblical text, it's not always referring to the tribe of Judah, right? Sometimes that word is referring to people who lived in the kingdom, who converted to the covenant, that were of another nation. Okay? So, included in the dispersing of the physical seed Israel were also people who were converted that were of another nation that became under the nation of the southern kingdom of Yehuda. Okay? They weren't physically Israelites by birth, right? Okay, now, with that said, Brother Dollar said, why don't those heathen footnote and tie Luke 12 to what we're doing? You already know the answer to that, right? Okay. All right. Now, so the horns that scattered Yehuda, right? He said the four horns, right? That scattered. Now, four, I add five because four is north, south, east, and west, right? Okay. All right. Four, north, south, east, and west. So each one of the powers that be took the Israelites from the same landmass in Africa. Check it out. When you go look at the slave trades, each and every one of them, where did they get the people from? They went into Africa and got them. How did they get there? Right? They got there through fleeing, right, from the persecution of the Gentile power. See, you got to know that the Israelites knew the prophecy. They knew that the sons of Japheth, the European powers, was coming to rule. And so what do? They went amongst the people that looked like them to blend in so they could hide from the European powers. And so you got to know, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, but you got to know that when they say Africans so other Africans, that's a theological hogwash to try to discredit the fact that the slave trade was actually prophecy. Okay, now That's it. Let me go back here. Okay, so I'm losing some people. So let me just kind of move on. All right. Um. So those are the horns that scattered. So when Daniel 9 talks about right, um, the 70 weeks determined upon Israel, right? When Daniel also talks about the four powers, right? Right. Talk about Medes and Persians, the Greeks and the Romans, right? And Roman extension, Rome extended, right? Maybe we'll do a lesson called Rome extended. Break it down. Okay. So anyway, so let's go back to Luke 20 and 24. We're gonna move a little further, move a little faster and a little further. Okay, so let's go back. Um, so that there, the four horns were scattered Yehuda, Jerusalem, Israel, and Jerusalem. And Yah showed me the four carpenters. And he said, then said I, what come these to do? And he spoke and saying, these are the horns which have scattered Yehuda, so that no man lift up his head, but these are come to fray them to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, right? Which lifted up their horn over the land of Yehuda to scatter it, right? How about that? So, man, these prophecies, you can ask Gemini, AI, and you got to trick AI. I'm going to show you how I trick AI and Gemini a minute, in a few minutes. How he tried to give me a theological answer, and I trick questioned him. Right? Okay. All right. Now, so let's go back to Luke 21:24. Then we'll go further. Okay. Now, so Luke 21:24. Now we see that Luke 21:24 uh, explains it this way. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive, right? So the next part we want to take away is captive, right? They shall be led away captive, right here, right? Captive. So the word captive is the word to make a captive or a prisoner of war, right? So the text is saying that the Israelites that would go into the led captive into all nations would be captured, right, as prisoners of war, right? And they will be sold to the people whose tongue that we don't comprehend, right? So the Europeans, don't you fool yourself like my dad used to say, to think that the Europeans went all up in Africa looking for people and taking a cap. They didn't do it that way, right? And we're going to show you Google Gemini acknowledges that they couldn't survive. They maintained along the coast because they couldn't go inland because they would have not survived during those days. Okay. Right. So let's go back here. All right. So, and he said, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So they shall be led captive, captured, taken as captives where they go. Right? Deuteronomy talks about all that. You're going to flee, you know. So that's what happened. The Israelite nations have been on the run, right? Okay. Led captive into all nations, right? So in the transatlantic and the 5 slave trades, they were captured, right? And led captive, right? Now, when you think about, for my Black history students, when you think about this, right? Why did the ports of the European colonizers go into the coast of Africa to get people, right? Instead of them going to other, let me see if I can do this here. Can I do this here? Let me see. Hold on a second. I want to show you this map. Let's see. Will this work for me? Let me see. Okay, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to do something different. Let's see. Why don't I do this here? Let's see. Okay, let's do it this way. I want to bring this exhibit into play, right? So we're gonna go to archives. Let me see. I want to go to let's see. Hold on a second. Let's bring this map up here real quick. Okay, here we go. Let's do this here, and then I'll bring this in. So, is it this one? Okay, it's this one here, I believe. Okay, now let's add this. Let's add this to the rotation here. Okay, it's this one here I want. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're gonna go right here, right? This is the Negro land map. We're gonna blow it, bring it up full mass, right? And let's see if I can zoom out. So now when you look at this map, good gravy, it's moving too fast. Okay. So when you look at this map, right, what do you see here? First, I want to say the Israelite nations, when they were fleeing from the oppressors, they went from North Africa to the Saharan because as the oppressors found them or knew where they were, it was easy for them to get to the area near the sea. So what did the Israelites do, right? The Israelites went down below the Saharan desert because they knew that those European colonizers couldn't come in the land because they couldn't survive. So they went in, right? So therefore, you see this territory that's not along the coast called Negro land, right? Now, when you zoom this in, let's see if I can, let's do the plus button. Okay. So when you zoom this in, now you see on the map, what do you see here? You see the upper or proper Guinea, right? Now here you got the coast, right? Right? So here is where they took us from, right? This is called Upper or Proper Guinea, right? Now, the powers that be want you to think that that's just a coincidence that they have the kingdom of Judah. Oh, they just put that there. You really believe that? It's not a coincidence. Let's look at it again. You see here the Gold Coast, right? Now, living in Chicago, they got a place called the Gold Coast. Guess who don't live there? The Gold Coast, right? This says the Tooth Coast, the Grain Coast, right? This says what the Floop. See that? The Floops, right? Uh, so what was happening here is that Israelites that was living in this territory were a self-sufficient community, right? So right here is where you see it says here, the kingdom of Judah or Weda, slave coast, Weda E or Judah, right? Okay. So the point I want to reiterate in this map is in order for the horns to get Israel, they had to have a hand by, and appreciate that, my brother, because he already knew where I was going. Psalms 83, right? Okay. So these are the people. Now, these are the people um, that handed the Israelites to the. Let me go back in here to my other window here. These are the people that actually handed the Israelites into the hands of the enslavers, right? So let's look at it right quick. Psalms 83, right? It says, verse 3 says, they have taken crafty counsel, right? They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Consultation. So, who were the ones that was doing the consultation? Right? It was the people that lived in the land Al Kebulon. That's what Leo Africanus called it. That were cousins, right? That looked like the Israelites, and they was like, these are the people we're going to capture, because Luke 21:24 said they shall be led captive. So these other nations who knew who we were, they were our cousins. What did they do? They captured and sold us. I'm going to show you in the biblical text the same thing, right? Okay. So he said that they have done what? Let's go back in here. Psalm 83. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and have consulted against thy hidden ones, right? They have said, come. So now, interesting, right? You got to ask the question here, why does it say that they're hidden, right? They were hiding. You know, theologians want to try to make that be some mystical thing. Israelites went in the black land to hide from the European colonizers. So why would you hide in Europe if you don't look like the Europeans? Right? The Hebrew Israelites never looked like the Europeans. This is not an attack against European people, but this is a reality of truth. Right? The father of the nation, Abraham's mother, was a Negro. Her name was she was the daughter of Carnebo. I'm trying to remember her name. It had to come back, but if you go to the Book of Jubilee, you tell you the name, right? She was a Cushite. So Abraham's mother was a black woman, an African woman, Afro-Edenic woman. Okay, so why is it when you follow the story, why is it that they always go into Africa when oppression comes, when the colonizers come? Even the Messiah fled to Egypt, right? Because they could hide from the sons of Japhet. Now, here it says, let's go back to Psalms 83. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and have consulted against the hidden ones, and they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, right? So think about it. This is powerful, right? How did they consult to cut the Negroes who happen to be the biblical Israelites off from being a nation? By dividing them and leading them captive into all nations so that they cannot have a power structure in place. Am I right? So the oppressors, the colonizers, worked with our cousins. Let's go back into it. All right. It says the tabernacles of Edom, right? The Edomites. That's why That's why this teaching that Esau is the so-called white man makes no sense at all. Because the white man couldn't make it in Africa. Think about it now. This brother like to the Gentiles when he don't like this part right here. Where did Esau flee, right? When King Dawid came into power. Where did Esau go? Where did his children go? Where they hide? They were hid in Egypt, just like the Israelites did. Now, if Esau was a so-called white man, and we use the teaching that Israelites hid amongst the Egyptians because they looked like them, then if Esau was white, how could he hide in Egypt from King Dawid? He hid, right? So Esau can't be the white man, because if he's the white man, if he hid amongst Egypt, he would have stuck out like a sore thumb, right? So we know Esau can't be the so-called white man, because Esau wouldn't be going into the black territories to hide from the oppressors himself and to hide from the king of Israel, right? So Esau went to Egypt to hide. His seed went to hide. Esau had alliances with the African kingdoms, right? The Europeans couldn't stand the heat in Africa, so how could Esau be a white man? Okay. Now, let me go further. All right. So Esau, Edomites, Edom, and Ishmael, right? Ishmael, here's another bump in the road, right? How many of y'all here Hebrew Israelite camps say Ishmaelites are the Arabs? And they talking about those Middle Eastern olive skinned looking Arabs. No. Some of them may be connected, but we'll do a series on Arabs in the future. I know definitely it's going to be in my book. Okay, so they're not Ishmael. Ishmael looks like Israel. So the Ethiopians, the Edomites, right? The Ishmaelites all look like the Israelites, right? So now let's go back into Psalms 83. All right. So Ishmael, Moab. So Moab is your Moors, right? Now, Moors are black, right? Moors, incidentally, they were one of the ones that sold the black Portugal Israelites out to the Spanish. Many of us embrace that we come from Moor or Moab. You got Moor Science in New York. Malik York? Okay. Let's go back. All right. So we got Ishmael, we got Edom, right? We got Moab, and now we got the Hagarenes, right? They are descendants, because Hagar was the concubine of Abraham, and Hagar had, after she was sent away, um, she had other children. I read that somewhere in a Arabic book somewhere that Hagar had. That's what the Hagarenes is. Uh, because Hagar's son Ishmael would be a Hebrew, right? So she had other sons and other children, right? When Abraham sent her away, right? So those would be your Hagarenes. So they would be kind of like on the maternal side cousins, right? Okay, all right, let's go back. So then you have the Hagarenes, and you have Gebel, right? Ammon, Amalek, and the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, right? So now we covered in the previous lesson, we showed you that those people became partners with Esau, especially Tyre, right? Some of them were mixed. They were Arabs. They were a mixture of Hebrew uh, stock and of the African stock, right? Phoenicians, um, those were the sea people. Because it's kind of complicated but you have to really, really, really research. Sea peoples is not just talking about sons of Japheth, because that was the melting pot, if you will. Okay, so you had some that were a mixture of Hamite and Shemite, right? For example, just like Abraham, when Abraham took another wife, Keturah, right? A lot of them were in the land of Al Kebulan that became known as Africa. Majority of them were descendants of Abraham through Keturah. So they were in the land too. So Israel always immigrated amongst people that looked like them to hide from the oppression of the European colonizers, right? Now, so that's where you got those where Josiah. Now we deal with this, the Confederacy, right? The Confederate States against Israel. Okay? Now, so we have to comprehend that. Let me see if I can come out of this over here. Got a screen. Okay. We have to comprehend that the horns that scattered Yehuda only could scatter them, right, with the aid of Psalms 83, right? Now, let me do this here, okay? I'm going to share something with you, conversation. So, I mentioned earlier, I tricked Gemini into telling the truth. So I asked Gemini about. Let me show you the conversation. You all can see the conversation. Let's see if I can switch this back. Okay. Um, this one here I want. I think that's the one I want. Okay. Did I do it? Let's see. I did. Okay, good. Cool. Okay, I'm learning. I'm learning now. I'm learning. You learn today. Okay. All right. So now let's go back. The question I asked was, it was a trick question, right? I said, does Genesis 18 and 18 include America? So what is Genesis 18 and 18, right? Okay. It says Genesis 18, just for those of you that need the reference. I'm not going to bring it on the screen. I'll just read it. It says, seeing that Abraham surely shall become a great and mighty nation, and all nations of the earth shall be blessed in him, right? So my question was, okay, so is America included in those all nations? Because theologians will try to flip the script and put a Mickey in the drink. So when it comes to all nations, it don't mean every nation. It's just meant the known world, right? So that's the theological approach that they came with, right? So now let's go back in here. So I asked that question. He said, in short, yes, America is included in the scope of Genesis 18:18, though it is not mentioned by name. The verse says, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Theologically and historically, this is interpreted in a few specific ways that include modern nations like the United States. So it goes on to say the universal interpretation, the phrase used Hebrew for all nations of the earth is kul goyim haaretz. Kul means all, goyim means Gentile or nations, and haaretz means the earth, the world. From the biblical perspective, this is universal promise. It doesn't just refer to nations that existed 4,000 years ago, but to every nation entity that will ever exist on the planet. As a modern nation state, America falls under the all nations umbrella. Okay, so y'all see where I'm going with this. I was setting him up. I want to see if he's gonna be truthful. So, or feed me hogwash from the 1948ers who generally are controlling what's being fed, right? So now let's look further what he said here. So he says the spiritual fulfillment, the Messiah, most Christian theologians interpret this blessing as being fulfilled through Jesus Christ, who was a biological descendant of Abraham. The New Testament, specifically Galatians 3:8, that's what they do. He's right. And in his view, the blessing isn't political or geographic. It is invitation for people from every nation, including Americas, to enter into a relationship with God through faith, right? 3, the ethical, the way of the Lord. The very next verse, Genesis 18:19, explains why God is doing this so that Abraham's descendants would keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Many scholars argue that this verse sets a standard for all nations in American context. Many of countries' founding principles regarding justice and righteousness were historically influenced by the Judeo-Christian ethics. Therefore, America is seen as a participant in the blessing by adopting these values and as a recipient of the promises through its people. How about that for an answer? So now, watch this now. So I'm going to flip the script because he included America in all. So now, let's go down. Let me bring it back on the screen here. Y'all got to stay with me now. Y'all, we're going to learn today. All right. So I said, my question said, no, he said, would you like to explore other New Testament passages like Galatians, Romans, connect this specific promise to the people living today? I said, okay. I just disregarded answering that because I'll come back to that later, right? I can ask that question again. I said, does Joel 3:2 include America, right? Now, what is Joel 3:2? So you're going to break it down. Okay. Joel 3:2 verse says, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. He said, whether this includes America depends on whether you view the passage through a historical, theological, or prophetic lens. Right. Watch this down. He says the prophetic lens. Most modern biblical scholars and students of prophecy view Joel 3 as a description of the day of the Lord, a final global judgment. All nations in this context, all nations is interpreted literally. In the United States, is if the United States is still an active nation during this future event, it will be included among those gathered for judgment. Okay, so he's right there, right? He's right there. All right. All right. Shalom to you, my brother. Smitty, good to see you, my brother. The criteria, he says, the verse specifies that God judges the nations based on how they treated his people. Okay, all right, we doing something here. And his land, Israel, prophetic commentators often warn that any American policy involving a dividing of the land, such as supporting a two-state solution, look, he's going political, could put the U.S. under a specific judgment mentioned in Joel 3:2. How about that, right? Now, so you can see the craftiness here of that answer. He's connecting the 48ers, right, to this his answer. Call it theological lens. Let's continue. All right. Okay. So he says the theologians. Let me see. Did I read that part? I lost my place. Where was I here? Let's see. Local school of all these. Okay, let me. I think I went past it. Okay, all right. Let's start right here. Historical lens. I may have read this already, but if I did, please pardon me. Okay. Historical lens. Some academic scholars argue that Joel was writing specifically about nations surrounding Israel at the time, 4th and 5th century. That's the answer right there, right? That's the one. He's trying to go with the historical lens. Local scope. In this view, all nations refer to regional powers that had oppressed Judah, such as Babylon, Tyre, Sidon, and Philistia, later mentioned in verse 4. America's status. Since America did not exist as a nation during the biblical era, it is not part of the original historical context of this message. Theological lens. Theologians often look at Joel 3 and 2 as a case law for how God interacts with all governments through history. Okay, I did read that part. The principle is that no nation, including the United States, is exempt from God's justice. Moral standard. This view suggests that America is included in the sense that God holds every superpower accountable for its treatment of the vulnerable and the stance towards the heritage of God. Okay. So he says why it matters. In modern America, discourse Joel 3 and 2 is one of the most frequent cited verses by the advocating for strong U.S.-Israel relations. The warning that God will judge those who have divided up my land is often used as a religious argument against America's diplomatic pressure on Israel regarding territorial borders. He said, would you like to see how this verse compares to Zechariah 14, which also describes the gathering of all nations against Jerusalem? Maybe later, but not now. Okay. So I said, now as I said, in the biblical context, when does all nations not include America? So you got to see. Now, I'm forcing him to answer the question because I have an agenda. I'm going somewhere, right? So, because he's trying to lead me down a road that I'm not trying to go down because he's giving me some watered down theological approach. I'm asking from a logical perspective as pertaining to the biblical text. So let's go back in here, all right? So now, he says, in a biblical context, the phrase all nations does not include America in two specified instances: historical intent and regional context. While modern theology often applies to all nations, all nations universally to include the entire globe today, looking at the Bible through a historical critical lens reveals where this scope was more limited. The known world. There you go. So that's the thing they want to do, right? And some Israelite can't do that, right? The known world. For y'all so love the Israelite world. Y'all heard that before. Okay, anyway. So the known world. In the New Testament, the Greek word often used for the world is oikoumene, which literally refers to the inhabited or civilized world known as to the writers. Okay, he gives Luke 2 and 1. I'm not going to read that there. All right, Shabbat Shalom to you, my brother. Sons of Yaakov, good to see you, my brother. All right, okay, now let's go back in here. He says, the table of nations, Genesis 10. In the Old Testament, the nations are often defined by the table of nations in Genesis 10, which lists the descendants of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The scope. This list identifies roughly 70 nations located in the Middle East, North Africa, and Southern Europe. While America is excluded, the biblical authors were documenting the lineage of the people they interacted with from the geological perspective. All nations refer to the specific family groups that originated in Near East. America, as a modern political entity formed thousands of years later, is not part of this specific ancient lineage, right? Okay, now, I don't want to go a particular route with him with that. I could go on because me and Gemini, we have a relationship. He'll tell me, I'll say something, and then he'll come back and say, you know what, you're right, you're correct. We had that kind of relationship. But let me go back. Okay, so now what he's trying to tell us is that all nations doesn't always refer to the nation that live today. But the thing that sticks out of my mind is the people that are in this part of the world are part of those sons. So all nations would include those people and the lands where they went. So the judgment of the nations, right, is dealing with those sons. Okay, he's not going to detail that. I could trick him into answering it right, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm gonna go a little further, right? Because I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, now he says immediate historical judgment. Many prophecies in the book, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, contain oracles against the nations. The intent, when the prophet says God is gathering all nations to witness a judgment, i.e., Babylon, Egypt, the all typically refers to contemporary superpowers and surrounding kingdom of the specific era, the 8th to 6th centuries BC, right? I totally disagree with that response. Because when you think about it, the Most High knows all things, so why would he exclude a people that from what he foreknew? But I digress. The exclusion, since America did not exist and had no political impact on Israel at the time, it was not the target or audience of these specific historical warnings. So I beg to differ because I can take him down the road. I could ask him a question and tell him, please explain to me Daniel's vision of the King Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the image, right? With the 10 toes. Okay. If he didn't, if the Most High didn't show him the world populated by those same sons who was scattered the globe, Yah shall enlarge your faith, right? And he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. The Most High didn't know that, right? What you bring to the table, brother? All right, now, so he goes on to say, all right, note on hermeneutics. This is a difference between exegesis, that what is meant to the original audience, and application, what means to us today. Most people who say America is in the Bible are applying the spiritual meaning, while historians note that America is a physical absent from the text. So, right, Sons of Jacob said, Genesis 15:13, everywhere we are, the land will be judged correct. That's right. That's right. That's right. You're right about that. Okay. So now, I asked him another question. I said, does Isaiah 2:2 include America? Right? He quotes Isaiah 2:2 says the verse describes the future time. Now it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountains of Yah's house shall be established on the top of the mountain, and all nations shall flow into it. He said, whether this includes America depends on whether you are looking for a literal mention of a spiritual prophetic application. He goes to say, prophetic spiritual inclusion, yes. Most biblical scholars and religious traditions interpret all nations, right, in Isaiah 2:2 as a universal statement. The Messianic age, the prophecy described the last days and time when the entire world acknowledges the God of Israel is this context. All nations is totalizing term. If the United States exists as a nation during this period, it is included in the group that flows to the mountain of Yah to learn his ways. Okay, he goes on to say the spread of the gospel. Many Christians see this verse being fulfilled through the Great Commission, since people from the United States have flowed into a Christian faith, symbolizing by the house of God. They view America as part of the fulfillment of prophecy, right? Okay, now, historical geographic, so you are looking at the Bible as a historical document written in the 8th century BC. America is not included. Hebrew word for the original audience of Isaiah, the nations were the surrounding kingdoms. So he's going back and forth with that. All right, now I'm gonna skip past some of this commentary. I want to get to a specific part. So I said, how does all nations, right, include America in certain theological interpretations and includes it in others? Isn't that bias? So he says, that is an insightful question. Whether all nations includes America often depends on the hermeneutical, the method of interpretation used, right? What might seem to be bias is often different in whether a reader sees the Bible as a historical map, the past, or a spiritual roadmap for the future. Historical critical view. The method focuses on exegesis, what the text meant to the original author of audience, right? Why it's necessary, the view prioritize historical integrity, right? So the universal theological view, including America, this mention focuses on application, the timeless principles of the text. Logic, if God is the creator of the entire planet, his promises and warnings must eventually apply to everyone, regardless of when their specific country was founded. Why it can feel like bias? Critics argue this view is Mary-centric, where readers assume the United States must be a central character in God's story because it is currently a superpower. Okay. Yeah. Sons of Yaakov said, makes you wonder once Yahuwah disassembled these nations with the acceptance of Yasharel, which nation will still claim rights to be an actual nation? That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Now, so he goes on to say that, right? Okay, now, um, I'm going to. So I open up a different conversation after that one. Um, so let's do this here. Let's open this other conversation. Okay. Let's close this map down. I don't need that now. Okay. Taking up too much resources from my computer. So let's go to this one here. It's about to get real in here now. Okay. So now I took him where I was trying to take him. So I said, now Portuguese Jews. I said, who forced the Portuguese Jews out of Portugal into West Africa? He says the forced migration of Portuguese Jews to West Africa was primarily the work of two Portugal monarchs. Right. Let me just say this here before I read that. Okay. So what I'm trying to bring out now is, okay, we talk about the 5 slave trades, right? So the first one, and during this series, we'll deal with each one individually, right? But I'll just mention them as a whole. And today I'm going to start with Portuguese, just introduction, because some stuff I want to read in there that is going to help me to lay the foundation for the series. Okay. So the Red Sea, which is the first, right, which is the 70 AD, right, and the Indian Ocean, they all happen around the same time, right? Um, and then the third, which is the Trans-Saharan, or what they call the Arab slave trade, right? The fourth is what I'm addressing now, which they don't classify, but it is. So I'm adding it as one. So the Portugal slave trade, right? The expulsion of the as they call them, the black Jews of Spain and Portugal out of the land into the west of Africa, right? So we're going to address that. And the fifth one is the transatlantic, right? So when the Messiah said that they shall be led captive into all nations, those all those trades is documented. They went into Africa and took the people that fled into Africa from the persecution of the sons of Japhet, right? I like the way Joseph says the Japhet. The sons of Japhet went into the land. Okay. Now, having said that, let's go back to my question there about Portugal, right? All right, so let's do it. So he said the forced migration of Portuguese Jews And the reason why the reason why I'm actually starting with Portuguese is because Portuguese was the father, right, of the 15th century exploits, right, which opened up the way for the the 17th century uh, exploits, and was called the scramble, right? The scramble for Africa. Okay, so the Portuguese were the ones that led that. So more directly, I should say, Luke 24 is more pointing towards that expulsion that started with the Portuguese. That's why I'm starting there. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go back in here. All right. He says the forced migration of Portuguese Jews to West Africa was primarily the work of two Portuguese monarchs, King John II, right, and King Manuel I, who used deportation as a tool for colonization and religious cleansing, right? The historical defined by two specific rules. King John II and the children of Sao Tome, 1493. In 1492, when Spain expelled its Jewish population, the Alhambra Decree, approximately 120,000 Jews fled to Portugal. King John II, allowed them to enter but charged a massive entry tax and granted them only a temporary stay of 8 months. So, what are we going to take out of that? Okay. So, in 1492, the Hebrew Israelites, African ethnic Hebrew Israelites, also known as Black Portuguese, were expelled from Spain to Portugal. Okay. 120,000 fled to Portugal. King John II allowed them to enter. Okay, now, so we got them going to Portugal. Okay, now, when the deadline passed in 1493, many of the Hebrew Israelites could not afford the exit fees or find ships to leave. In response to King John II, declared the remaining he declared the remaining those that remain his slaves. He enslaved them, right? So now, what I want to bring out, just want to kind of add as a sub note here, that for my Christian apologists that want to try to fight and battle, and you're not good people, when Yah doesn't change, right? So every time the Israelites went into captivity, right, it was a fulfillment of declaration that the Most High said, if you break the covenant, you're going into captivity, right? So why all of a sudden we go from the beginning slave captivity in Egypt, right? And then we go into the land of Canaan, and then we go and do some bad stuff in Judges, and then all these people come and take us in captivity. Then the kingdom gets set up under King Dawid and King Shalomo, and then the kings of the north and the south started becoming pagans, and the Most High allowed them to be taken into captivity, right? Okay. Then during the days of the Mashiach, right, the Messiah said, you're going to be led captive of all nations. So that's a methodology that the Most High used as a judgment against the people. So now we push forward, we get into the 15th century, and now you want to tell me that that's just a coincidence? That the methodology of judgment of the so-called Negroes that was made to be African slaves is a coincidence? You want me to believe that's a coincidence? The Most High used the methodology of enslaving the people of Israel all through the book, and now all of a sudden this happens, and you say, "Oh, it's just a coincidence." It ain't a coincidence. The Most High has always used the same methodology, right? Told our Rabbi, Brother Digital, for that super chat. Hallelujah. Shalom, 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 Shabbat shalom. All right. He seems to be the only one that's appreciating the brother on the Shabbat. Don't get mad. Just go in your pocket. That's all. Okay, let me go back in here. All right. All right. Now, so you want me to believe that that's a coincidence. The methodology of the enslavement of the Israelites continued to happen throughout the book. And now all of a sudden, we go into a new period, and the slave trade takes the last voyage, right? We go from 70 AD, we go through the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Trans-Saharan, the Portugal, and the transatlantic slave trade, and the transatlantic sticks out on its own, or it's just a coincidence, right? The same people being taken into captivity throughout history, but the transatlantic slave trade is just a coincidence. How dumb do you think we can be? Y'all don't change. So if y'all's method has always been to send his children for disobedience under the oppressors in the enemy's land, then why can't it be the same? Deuteronomy says, among these nations you will have no ease. How do you explain the struggle of the so-called Negroes in all the places where we are? Those that are in the Netherlands today, Germany. I hear the story. They talk about it. Some of our people left, moved to other countries, and said, "Man, it was hard for us. We was just a little speck there." I got a neighbor lived in Germany. She's back here, right? So think about this now. So now let's go back in here. So he said that this is what Gemini said. He said that the remaining was declared. He declared the remaining Jews his slaves, right? And he forcibly kidnapped approximately 700 to 2,000 children, right, between the ages of 2 and 10. He kidnapped them, right, deported them to the Isle of Sao Tome, right, which is the translated Hellenized St. Thomas, off the coast of what? West Africa, which was then a harsh crocodile infested wilderness. Right? How about that? Have y'all heard about the crocodile babies? It didn't start in America. All right. Let's go back. Let's go further now. All right. So it says, so there was crocodile infested, where was I at? Wilderness. Then here's the other part. So see, the thing is that, let me stop for a second. Some of y'all don't know why you a Christian. This going to help to explain to you why you a Christian today. Let's go in. All right. Look at what he says here. He says, forced conversion. The children were forcibly baptized on the voyage. The children were forcibly baptized on the voyage. One more time. The children were forcibly baptized on the voyage. The king's goal was to seed the colony with a population that would eventually grow up as Christian. Boom! And provide a labor force for the burgeoning sugar industry. A burgeoning. Tragically, most of these children died within a year due to disease and the inhospitable climate. Okay? Now, Manuel, this is number 2. Manuel, um, 1, and the general expulsion, 1496 to 1497. When John II died, his successor, King Manuel I, initially pardoned the enslaved Israelites, enslaved Hebrew Israelites. However, he soon sought to marry Isabella or Asturias, right? Uh, the daughter of the Spanish monarch Ferdinand and Isabella. A condition of the marriage was that Portugal must be cleansed of the Hebrew Israelite people. These are the Jews, okay? In 1496, Edict Manuel issued a decree in December 1496, giving the Israelites until October 1497 to convert or leave. See that? So he gave them the ultimatum to convert to Christianity or to do what? To leave. Boom. So in our DNA, in our history, Christianity, my brothers, my Christian brothers and friends, was imposed upon us. Okay? We're not under the law, we're saved by grace through faith. That's what you got. All right, let's go back in. Okay, now, in 1497, trap. As the deadline approached, Manuel, realizing that the Hebrew Israelites were vital to the economy, just like today, did not actually want them to leave, so he closed all the ports except Lisbon, then herded the thousands of gathered Hebrew Israelites into the courtyard where they were forcibly splashed with holy water and declared Christians. How about that? That's where you get your, in church, you got the sprinkle. That's where it came from. Sprinkle the baby. That's where it came from. So we've adopted the practice that the enslavers did when we were in Portugal at this particular junction, the sprinkling of the babies. And notice what he said. He said, sprinkle them, forcibly splash them with holy water, right? And they became Christians, right? So he splashed them with holy water and declared them to be Christians. Now there are links here. You can go to the links here. There are actually books. I can give you reference books to that. This stuff I already know, so I'm just kind of going with it. Okay, now, flight to West Africa. Over the following decades, many of these new Christians, conversos, fled the Portuguese Inquisition, established 1536. They established communities in Senegal, look at that, Gambia, and Cape Verde, where they could live further from the reach of the Inquisition and in some cases return to their Israelite faith in secret or openly. Look at that. So interesting to note, right? He said they established communities where? In Senegal, Gambia, and Cape Verde. Now, remember, we showed you the Negro land map, right? So that's where these black Portuguese Hebrew Israelites, that history calls them black Jews, settled in the lands of the Negro land, right? Okay. So the people that was there wasn't having it. Who were the people that was there? Moabites. Who were the people that was there? Ishmaelites, right? Hagarites, right? Uh, all the cousins, right? Ammonites, right? They was there in the land because they saw how the Europeans was coming into their native lands to take over. And since they were coming into their native lands to take over, many of them fled into what we call Africa. All right. Some of the Yaakov said Malachi 3:6. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Malachi 3:6. All right. For I am Yah, I change not. That's it. Therefore, you sons of Yaakov are not consumed. There you go. And applaud. So therefore, we need to comprehend that since the Most High doesn't change, what does that mean? That means that the method of his judgment doesn't change, right? All right. So now, just a little information on this. I asked them about these people. Are there any pictures of these kings? So this is King John the Second, right? So you'll see, if you see on the thumbnail, I have the picture of these people. So these are the people, right? So now I said, well, who led the Dutch slave trade? So I don't want to go too much further into this. I'll come back to this because we got the Dutch. So we got the Dutch slave trade, right? You have the French, right? You have the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, right? And the British. Okay. All right. So we'll cover that. We'll cover that in the future. So I don't want to go too far into that. Okay. Now, um, let's close this down. I was going to open this link over here, but I kind of jumped ahead of myself. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. Okay, let's do this one here. We'll close this one here. Okay, now, so let's see. Is this the one? Okay, yeah, this is the one, right? This is the one right here. We'll close this one here. This is the main one here. Okay, all right. So now if we look at this here. It says African slave trade routes and periods, right? I asked the question, what countries were the African slaves sold and during what period in history? He says the African slave trade was not a single event, but a global network that operated across three major routes: the transatlantic, trans-Saharan, and the Indian Ocean trades. Okay, so he says three: the transatlantic, trans-Saharan, and Indian Ocean trades. These trades collectively displaced millions of Africans over more than a millennium. The destination countries and time periods were varied significantly by route. So this is what so my Black history students, scholars, this is the part you need to teach to your class. That's why they want to take out Black history out of school, because somebody quoted in the video I was watching this week, if you forget the past, you will repeat it. Right. Okay. Um, so let's go back here. Okay, now here where it gets interesting, right? The African slave trade was not a single event. I read that part. So let's go down here. So the transatlantic slave trade, West and Central Africa to the Americas. Now remember, we showed you on the map, right? We showed you on the map. Will let me do that? It will. Okay, cool. I think I'll do it this way. Let's see. Okay. Let's bring it back up again. So remember, we showed you on this map here, right? We showed you on this map where the West Coast, where we were taken from captivity. So we showed you this here. Look at this here. I'll bring it in so you can see it. Let's see if I can pop this up here. So he shows you the Negro land and the upper or proper Guinea, which is what Gemini just told us, right? Where the Portuguese Hebrew Israelite, the Negroes that were Portuguese Hebrew Israelites, right? They came down here into upper or proper Guinea and settled right here. Um, so with that said, let me see. Okay, wait, I got it. The transatlantic slave trade West and Central Africa to the Americas. This was the largest and most intense migration of enslaved people in history, right? It focused on supplying labor for plantation economies, sugar, cotton, tobacco in the New World. So notice he said that this is the most intense migration of people, the largest and most intense, right? The time period was 1501 to 1867, peaking in the 18th century, which is 1700s. Okay. The total approximately 12.5 million enslaved people were embarked. About 10.7 million survived the journey. The major destination countries regions. It is important to note that most of these destinations were European colonies at the time. Okay. Brazil or Portugal received the highest volume of enslaved Africans anywhere in the world. 47% of the total trade, or 4.9 million people. So you got brothers and sisters down there in Portugal that think they Spanish, Latino, Brazilian, all the above. Lion Pride, good to see my brother. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you, my brother. He's been listening on the PC. That's good. PC is the place to do it. All right. So back to the article. So Caribbean, Britain, France, Netherlands, Denmark. The Caribbean, Britain, France, Netherlands, Denmark. These are the beneficiaries, I should say, that took them to the Caribbean. Britain, France, Netherlands, Denmark. The second largest destination, approximately 40%. Modern equivalents: Jamaica, Haiti, Saint Dominic, Cuba, Barbados, Trinidad, and Togo. So these are your cousins down there, right? No, Haiti, then Saint Dominic was the most profitable French colony and a massive importer of slave labor until the Haitian Revolution. So this is where, so when we see this, we're seeing that this is where the Israelites were taken to, right? We're showing you here Brazil, South America, Caribbean, including Jamaica, right? All my Jamaican friends is one that don't want to acknowledge that they are our cousins, that we come from the same people that came from the coast of Africa. Haiti, they speak French, right? Cubans, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, right? The Spanish, Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, Peru, Mexico, Argentina, right? North America, this is our people. Britain, USA, that's the British hub. They had the smallest. While significant in United States history, the direct shipments to North America were small compared to South America and Caribbean. Most enslaved people arrived in states like Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia. See that? So that's why we related. They came in through Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia, right? Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia, right? So all of us, we have, because see, you get the South Carolina people came to Maryland, where I'm at. because Maryland was a free state. So a lot of people in the 1600s got free through emoluments, wills left by a prior slave owner who decided where we're going to let them go. So in my county where I grew up at in Maryland, Kent, right, there were a lot of black farmers that inherited or became landowners. I come from a family connected to the family of the Johnsons. We're going to cover that as we go into this lesson. We're going to show you the surnames, right? Connects us back to these Portugal people, right? Okay, all right. So we have the Britons who dominated the North American peninsula. Number two, he says the trans-Saharan slave trade, North Africa and Middle East, this trade route moved people from West and Central Africa across the Saharan desert to North Africa and Mediterranean, right? The time period, 7th century, 20th century, predates Atlantic trade by centuries and lasted longer, though lower in annual volume. So, roles, unlike the Americas where labor was agricultural, enslaved people were often used as domestic servants, soldiers, and concubines. So when you see the lighter complected Arabs, some of them are a result of the mixing of the seed of men with the seed of beast. There's a prophecy that says that he says, I will mix the seed of men with the seed of beasts. I'll give you the reference there. I think it's Jeremiah. Yeah, Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31 says, behold, the days come, says Yah, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah with the seed of man and with the seed of beasts. There it is right there. So the Most High sowed the house of Yehudah and Israel with the seed of beasts. How did it happen? Through these slave trades. So thus you have some Arabs, the Indo-Eurasian Arabs, who intermix with the Hamitic, which gave them a lighter hue. So now I want to say this too. The original Arabs of the Trans-Saharan weren't European Arabs. They were the Ishmaelites, right? They were the Moabites, Ammonites, who enslaved their cousins and brought them into Africa, was brought enslaved during the Trans-Saharan slave period. It wasn't until later on that the Persian invasion, right? And you go into the Turks and all of them, right? Those are the Eurocentric Arabs that intermix with the African Edenic Arabs. Okay. That's a whole lesson in itself. But let me go further, okay? So back in here. So you have that it says the roles, unlike America, where labor and agriculture enslaved people, right? Major destination countries, regions. North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, Libya, Egypt. So later on, I could ask Gemini a question, but I don't want to. Maybe I'll do that next week. When did the Arabs start to look white? Because originally they didn't. Not in North Africa. There's a time period, we'll cover that next Shabbat prayerfully, when the northern Africans started looking lighter. Is a historical time when that happened. So the people that's there today want you to believe they was always there. No, they were not. There are recent arrivals. Okay? We'll cover that. All right. Now let's go back in here so we can wrap this baby up. Shabbat shalom, Makot Visa. Good to see you, my sister. Shabbat shalom. All right. Brother Dollar said, hit the likes. There you go. Told everybody, leave it up there for a minute. All right. So now, you got, now here's what I was talking about. Look, look at this. Major destination countries. It says North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt, right? Then it says the Ottoman Empire, Turkey, and the Balkans, right? So those people today, right, that in Egypt today, they want to say, oh, they kind of have a little, dark eyes, dark hair. They want to say, we the original. No, you're not. You came into the land during the invasion of the Ottomans, right? So you got the Ottomans, right? Ottoman Empire, Turkey, and the Balkans. Then Europe, southern part, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, especially during the medieval period. See that? The oceans, watch this now. The oceans, in the ocean slave trade, East African to Asia, East Africa to Asia. So did you know, right? Hold on a second. Lion Price said a comment that kind of got me. I want to address that because we might be cousins. He named the name there. That's in my line. Okay, all right. Where was I here? Okay, the Indian Ocean slave trade, right? So now remember what I want to bring out is that remember this, right? You can ask any scholar. Everybody that they enslaved and took to different parts of the world, Luke 21:24 said it. You shall be led captive for all nations. Every person that they brought by force into slavery came out of Africa. It's not a coincidence. That's the same people that followed the same practice that the Most High kept enslaving the Israelites for breaking the covenant. It's nothing new. But you got to be dumbed down to believe that that's an isolated event. It's not. You've been indoctrinated with falsehood. That's what you've been done. They don't want you to know because you're waking up to the truth and returning to the covenant seals the end of their reign. I need a hand clap right there. Am I right? All right, let me get back. Okay, now. So he said the Indian Ocean slave trade took them from East Africa to Asia. This trade route transported people from Swahili coast. How about that? From the Swahili coast, modern day Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, across the Indian Ocean, right? So what did they do? They took those African Negroes from Africa and went back to the Middle East. Think about it. Think about it. Some of them still there today. They don't know what they are. They think they're Iraqians. They think they're Iranians. Okay. So look at what happened here. So they went. It said they took them back to I lost my place here. Where was that? Okay. They went to the coast of Swahili, modern day Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique across the Indian Ocean. The time period from the 8th century to the 19th century peaked in the 19th century. Roles, plantation labor, clothes, coconuts, pearl, diving, and domestic service. Major destination countries and regions. The Arabian Peninsula. Where did they take them to? Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia. How about that? Persian Gulf, Iraq, specifically Basra and Iran. So you went into Africa and did what? And took the Hebrew people to Iraq and Iran. They had cousins already there that was there from the Babylonian captivity that never left. So you joined your cousins down there, right? Let's go back. All right, so we got Iraq, Iran, Indian Ocean islands. Zanzibar was a major hub. Madagascar, Mauritius, Reunion, and this one here is Seychelles. And for those that are in doubt, India, Western regions like Gujarat and Goa. Right. How about that? Right. So now Luke 21:24 is not a coincidence. He said that you will be led captive into all nations. Doggone it, we showing you through this Google Gemini, telling you that these so-called people that was taken captivity, like Luke, the Messiah said in Luke, the history documents that they was led captive into all nations. Am I right? Let's go further. All right. So when did it end? He says, while the trade in human beings was legally abolished by most nations in the 19th century, that is to say, Britain in 1807, U.S. in 1808, Brazil in 1888, the actual illegal sale or transfer of people continued in pockets of the trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean regions well into the 20th century. I believe that. Okay, so I asked, where Africans sold in the Red Sea and Arab slave trades? He said the Red Sea slave trade and the Arab slave trade are often discussed together, but they are involved distinct routes and destinations, right? Okay. In general, the Arab slave trade is a broad term that covers two main routes, the Red Sea route and the Indian Ocean route, right? Moving people from the Nile Valley. Look at it, the Red Sea. Moving people from where? The Nile Valley and the Horn of Africa into Arabia Peninsula and Egypt. How about that? Boom. The Indian Ocean. Moving people from East Africa, Swahili coast to Persian Gulf and India, right? So there you have those two. He said, here are the specific countries and regions where enslaved Africans were sold in these trades. The Red Sea trade, Nile Valley, Horn of Africa, right? The route primarily targeted people from modern day Sudan, underline that, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. So this is the Red Sea. They took these people here. Why these people? Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. Why did they grab those people? Is it a coincidence that they grabbed those people? Or was it something about why did all the nations decide they want to go into Africa and grab the same people? Why? Why didn't you go to Europe and grab some of them people from the Caucasus Mountains? Huh? We already know. So the same people that Luke 21:24 is talking about, this be them. And these be the horns that scatter Yehuda, Israel, and Jerusalem. Right? Those 5 slave trades, those European powers that had a hand in fulfillment of prophecy is not a coincidence. Don't you fool yourself. All right. Now, so let's go back in here. So he said that the primary targeted people of the modern Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, right? They were marched to ports on the Red Sea and shipped across Arabia. So back to Egypt and ships, right? There you go, right there, Moray Josiah, right? Saudi Arabia, Hejaz and Nej, Jeddah This was the primary gate for enslaved people entering the Arabian Peninsula. It served as a port for the holy cities, Mecca and Medina. These cities were major markets where enslaved people were sold, Mr. Islam. These cities were major markets where enslaved people were sold to pilgrims from all over the Muslim world who would then take them back to their home countries, ranging from Turkey to Indonesia, right? So that explains to you what? How the Indo European Arabs replace the Afro Asiatic Arabs. They took them to their lands that they Yefeth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. So when you look at the biblical prophecy that said Yefeth, the sons of Europeans, the so-called European Caucasian people, would dwell in the tents of Shem, that's how they did it. They went into the lands that was Shemitic, right? And they took the people that had fled out of there, took them back, and interbred with them the beast, the seed of men with the seed of the beast. The beast, Daniel says, are those powers. What you bring to the table, brother? Okay, let me go back. All right, let me wrap it up here. Okay, so going further. So you got Mecca, Medina, right? Yemen, Makkah, Aden, major trading hubs where enslaved people were sold for local labor or reported further northeast. Zabid, historically a significant market city for the trade. Egypt, many enslaved people were moved down the Nile across the Red Sea to Cairo and Alexandria, which were massive distribution centers for who? The Ottoman Empire. Boom! Look at that. See? Look at that. Look at that. The markets in Egypt and Arabia, there goes your Ottoman people. They dominated, right? See, here's the thing, right? In order for them to be able to stand the continent, some of them needed the melanin. So it was a strategic move to mix the seed so that they could eventually move into territories that they really couldn't survive in. So in doing so, they taught history as if they was always there, right? All right, my brother. Good to see you. All right. Um, have a blessed Shabbat, my brother. Okay. Somebody want to know where you. Somebody want to know where you attend. So help them out there, brother. Somebody probably want to join you. All right. Let me see. Where am I here? Okay. All right. Let's try to wrap it up here. All right. We almost finished. Okay. Ottoman. So Ottoman, we did that. Ottoman. They had markets in Egypt. So remember, Deuteronomy 20 says, "You shall go back to Egypt in ships." How about that? There we go. Right there. They had markets in Egypt and Arabia and enslaved Africans, particularly men castrated as eunuchs and women for harems, um, where were sent to Istanbul and Ottoman cities in the Balkans and Anatolia. The Indian Ocean Arabs trade Swahili coast. This route focused on Zan or Bantu peoples. How about that? Ron Dalton. From modern day Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique, the trade was dominated largely by a Sultanate of Oman, which moved its capital to Zanzibar in the 19th century. Zanzibar, Tanzania, before reaching their final destination, most enslaved people were first sold in great slave markets, Stone Town, Zanzibar, It was the main hub where Arab traders purchased captives to ship further north. See that? Oman, Muscat, the primary destination distribution center in the Gulf. Omanis were the master of mariners of this trade. Persian Gulf, Iraq, Iran, UAE, United Arab Immigrants, Bahrain, Iraq, Basra. Large numbers of enslaved Africans were sold here, famously leading to the Zan Rebellion, the major slave revolt of the 9th century. They were often used to drain salt marshes. Iran sold in southern parts of Bandar Abbas Afro-Iranian communities. The Afro-Iranians still exist in these regions today. How about that? Pearl diving banks in modern day Bahrain, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Enslaved men were sold specifically to work as pearl divers in the dangerous pearl industry. Then you have India and Pakistan. Enslaved Africans known as Sidis and Habshis were sold in Gujarat, India, and the Makran coast or Pakistan. Unlike in the Americas, some Sidis rose to become elite soldiers, admirals, and even rulers, e.g., the Sidi Nawabs of Janjira. Okay? All right. Now, after he said all of that, right? So here's where we'll close. Bring us back to Luke 21:24. I said, watch this. So this was the trick here, okay? I said, Luke 21:24 says that the Jews would be led captive to all nations. When did that happen? And watch what he says here. He says, historically, the prophecy in Luke 21:24 regarding the Jews being led captive to all nations generally understood to have been fulfilled during the Roman destruction of Jerusalem and the subsequent dispersions in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. This unfolded in two major historical phases. So he's going to tell us that Luke 21:24 was fulfilled in the 1st and 2nd century, right? I beg to differ, but let's see what he says here. He says destruction of Jerusalem 70 AD. The primary fulfillment occurred during the First Jewish-Roman War. The event 70 AD, the Roman general and future emperor Titus besieged Jerusalem. The Romans breached the walls, destroyed the Second Temple, and burned the city. The captivity, according to the historian Josephus, who was present, approximately 1.1 million people died during the siege, and 97 were taken captive. Okay? The destination, these captives were enslaved and sent throughout the Roman Empire. Many were sent to work in the Egyptian mines. Others were dispersed to areas in various provinces to fight as gladiators, and thousands were sold in slave markets across Rome's territories in Europe, North Africa, and Asia. Okay. So this is his interpretation of the fulfillment of that. The Bar Kokhba revolt. The dispersion was solidified and expanded after the Second Jewish-Roman War of the Bar Kokhba revolt. The event, after a failed Jewish uprising against Roman rule, Emperor Hadrian ruthlessly crushed the rebellion, the exile. To prevent further revolts, Hadrian expelled the Jews from Jerusalem, renamed the city Aelia Capitolina, or dedication to Jupiter. We read about that in the previous lesson. And renamed the province of Judea to Syrian Palestina, right? The result, Jews were banned from entering Jerusalem except on one day a year, Tisha B'Aviv, and were scattered further into the Roman world and beyond. This marked the beginning of the major diaspora where a Jewish community became established in Europe, Babylon, modern Iraq, and North Africa, remaining without a sovereign state until 1948. How about that? See, he's trying to put some stuff in the game, right? All right. And he said the times of the Gentiles. The verse 21:24 includes by saying Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time the Gentiles were fulfilled. Historians and theologians note that from 70 AD until the 20th century, Jerusalem remained almost exclusively under the political control of non-Jewish powers, Romans, Byzantines, Muslims, Crusaders, Ottomans, and the British, which aligns with the trampling described in the text. Next step. Would you like to know? Okay, so in other words, He's saying the times of the Gentiles have ended, right? So that's his theological answer, is that Luke 21:24 says the times of the Gentiles ended in 1948. So how did it end if the sons of Japheth, who are known as Ashkenazis, the son of Gomer, are in the land, right? Now Dante Forson, he a bad dude. He, he went down that road and he got them to acknowledge that they were Gentiles. I would mess. I would mess. I wouldn't mess with Gemini on that, but Dante did a good job with that. So he giving us hogwash, because if Luke 21:24 said that they will be led captive into all nations, right, and uh and Jerusalem be trodden down by the Gentiles. If you connect them to being the Gentiles, then we can see that Luke 21:24 has been proven to be true, that these people who we have declared are these 1948ers, who we have declared are the people of the book, is fulfilling Luke 21:24 and fulfilling Genesis, where it says, Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right. Now, wait, hold on. Y'all got, let me see. Y'all got a lot going on. I'm not going to. At the end, when I get ready to close up, I'll post a couple of these comments. They're kind of off the subject. I want to kind of go off until I close out here. Okay, all right. So yeah, so he wanted us to believe that was a fulfillment of 1948, right? So I said, how does the Roman Empire mean all nations, especially since you said that they went one place to Egypt mines? How does that fit the text? So he's trying to give me some theological studies to understand how Roman Empire fits the description of all nations. It helps to look at both the historical reality of the Roman world and the language used in the Bible. The Roman Empire was the world. How about that, Mr. Gemini? He said the Roman Empire was the world. In the first century, the Roman Empire was not just one country like we think of today. It was a massive, multinational superpower that spanned three continents: Europe, Africa, and Asia. When Luke wrote this gospel, the Greek word he often used the word was oikomen, which literally means inhabited world. To the people of that time, Roman Empire was the world. It contained dozens of distinct nations, ethnic groups, tribes, including Europeans, Gauls, France, Britons, Spaniards, Greeks, Italians, Germans, Africans, Egyptians, Libyans, Carthaginians, Ethiopians, and Nubians, right? Asians, Syrians, Persians, Cappadocians, and Armenians. When the 97,000 Jewish captives were taken in 7 AD, they weren't just sent to Egypt, they were auctioned off in slave markets across the entire vast network. Okay, so this is his answer. He wants me to believe that, right? Okay, based on the information that he's pulling from, that is trying to feed the narrative that the 48ers are fulfillment of that. Okay. Captives were dispersed everywhere. He says, while Egyptian mines were a major destination for many male captives, the dispersion was far wider. The capital, thousands were brought to Rome to build colosseums funded by the spoils of the temple. Arenas, captives were sent to Roman provinces like Syria, Greece, and North Africa to be used in games. Okay, so that's his answer. Okay, all nations, he goes off and say, okay, now, okay, flip the script. I go back. We'll skip that just for time's sake. I said Isaiah 11 states that Judah will be dispersed to the four corners. How do you qualify that with your findings? He says in biblical Hebrew, the phrase translated four corners literally means wings or extremities. It is an idiom used to describe the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Okay. When you compare the text of Isaiah with the historical dispersion, the four corners are qualified by specific regions and types of labor we discussed earlier. He goes on specific geographic to Isaiah 11 corners. He said north Hamath, south Egypt, east Assyria, and west islands of the sea, Mediterranean islands of Europe. So that's what he wants to believe, right? So he goes on and explains, elaborates on his answer, and then gives me a video. I said, so Deuteronomy says the end of the earth. How do you explain that one? Deuteronomy 28:64 speaks of being scattered from one end of the earth to another. It is using a Hebrew idiom. Oh, it's using a Hebrew idiom now. This designed to convey totally the maximum distance, right? Okay. Then he goes on and explains that, right? Ships, mechanism. Ships were the primary way to reach the ends of the earth. Okay. So I said Deuteronomy 30, Deuteronomy also states that it would be a nation from far whose tongue you will not understand. Who does that equate to your references? He said, to see how this equates to history and my previous reference, we have to look at the linguistic family tree of the ancient Near East. Why tongue matters. So he goes on through a spill. I'm gonna expedite past all this here. Okay. So he says, the transatlantic and global perspective. If we look at the later slave trades like the transatlantic trade, and many scholars and groups connect to these verses, the nations survived. Britain, Portugal, Spain, and France were the same far nations from Roman expansion, but now moving across the Atlantic. The tongue. Enslaved people taken from Africa were forced to learn English, Portuguese, French languages that were entirely foreign to their native tongues like Yoruba, Igbo, and Kikongo. The eagle connection. The verse also mentions the nation would be as swift as the eagle flies. Roman iconography, the primary symbol of even Roman legion was Aquila eagle. They carried bronze eagles and poles on every battle. Modern nations. Interestingly, the nations that later dominated the globe, slave traders and ends of the earth, the United States, France, and Germany, also adapted the eagle as their national symbol, right? He said, a reference to a tongue you will not understand marks a transition from neighborly wars to imperial conquest by Western powers from the ends of the earth, Europe. Next step. In Deuteronomy 26:8, it mentions return to Egypt in ships. Would you like to explore? Okay. So I said, no, now you talking, because there is where the connection is made with Gemini. Because he took me around a roundabout way where he finally acknowledged that those people that was there are the extension of those 5 of those nations that came in the 15th century, that started the Portuguese, the French, the Netherlands, the Dutch, the British, and all the other Europeans that scrambled for Africa. So he went all the way around the boondock to come back to say that Luke 21:24 actually could refer to, right, those slave trades. And I need to go ahead and that right there. So I'm going to end there. And next Shabbat, there's a little more that I could do with that, because I want to be graphic. I want to show you some pictures. YouTube gives me a hard time when I put graphics up. They'll take a video down because I put a graphic in there. It took one of my videos down because I put a graphic in. It said it was violation of community guidelines. So I had to be very careful because they will take the whole video down because of that. So Probably you all got something out of that, what we shared today. And I see I got a bunch of different. All right, let me go back here. I'm gonna look at some comments here and put them on the screen so you all can see the comments, and then we're gonna wrap it up there. Okay. Um, Lion Price said, my mama's side is from North Carolina, Mason and Goldston. My papa comes from South Carolina, Smith. You know, in the 40s and 70s, our grandparents wanted to pass the light brown bag test. Yeah. So Smith, actually, that might connect you to me because I have definitely Smith in my ancestral lineage. The Smiths here I'm in Kent County, Maryland, which is a historical area of free land owning blacks. A lot of blacks, and one of my books that I'm going to be writing is The Black Farmers of Kent County. A lot of people came from South Carolina, came here and established farms. They established businesses. The Johnsons were landowners. They was into the real estate game. I have Joneses in my family. They were also into the real estate game. Um, my paternal family, Cottons, they were landowners and they were also farmers. So the Smiths, that's on my maternal grandmother's side, right? So we might connect there, my brother. Okay, let's see. Let's hide this one here. Uh, Sons of Yaakov said exactly because them light skinned Edos can't survive the sun. Then people need to understand how to fix their lives. Yeah, that's correct. Uh, Here's Lion Pride again. Said in USAF technical school with my soft nappy haircut, my Bahrain classmate, we look like twins after 9/11. I could show you some stuff, some pictures, man. I have a book. I never really did the series on the Arabs, but I can show you some pictures of this one particular book I got. I think the book is called The Arabs. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Let me see. I think that's all we got. Let's see. Somebody else said something here. Black equals colonizer language. Rootless. White recognizes superior. I don't know what all this is, brother. That's a whole lot there, my brother. I'm not even gonna post that one there. um, okay. Okay, that's good. That's pretty much. I'm pretty much done with the comments there. All right, so probably you all got something out of today's lesson, and yeah, I want to try to. Okay, I guess I have to close it with this here. I can't find my end screen, but I will say this here: praise the Most High for you all that join us here today on this live stream. Praise the Most High. Bless you on the restoration of the Shabbat. Until we meet again at the appointed time, we say Shalom, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom.
the diva. God promised he would give us a kingdom. We disobeyed and fell into a syndrome.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
God said in the lands of our captivity, when we return, he will give us liberty. Return back to our land of nativity, kingdom of peace for the whole wide world to see. Oh yeah. Here we go now. Here we go now.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
Yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
We are the sons and daughters of the covenant of Yah.
We will reign for 1,000 years with him. Kings and priests having God's law with him. We were paying for the trials and tribulations. That's when the world would pay us our full reparations.
Reparations, reparations,
Reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,
reparations, reparations,